I used to think monsters lived under my bed. Turns out they were sleeping in the next room. My own mother and stepfather spent years destroying my childhood. This isn't just about what they did. It's about how I took back my voice and made sure the entire family finally saw them for who they really are. If you've ever been gaslit by the people who were supposed to love you, stay till the end. What started as silence became one of the most satisfying family reckonings you'll hear today. I'm 26, the youngest of 5. By the time I was 10, the house felt empty. My siblings had grown up and moved on, and I was left alone with the two people who would do the most damage: my mother and the man who would become my stepfather. My parents separated when I was 6 and divorced when I was 12. The reason was simple and ugly. My mother was cheating with a family friend. We moved in with him while she was still legally married to my dad. That's when the lines started to blur. Privacy, safety, love, until there were no lines at all. The abuse started when I was around 9 or 10. At first it was comments that didn't sound right, looks that lasted too long. Then touches. Then orders. He'd force me to sit through things no child should ever see. He talked to me like I was an adult, but only about things no adult should ever ask a child to hear. My mother knew. She saw enough to know. Sometimes she was in the room. Sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she pretended not to hear. It all sent the same message. This is normal and you don't get to say no. Privacy disappeared. My bedroom door had to stay open. Even the bathroom door couldn't fully close. If I ever tried, he exploded, like I was the one crossing boundaries. He'd wake me at night, whisper things that made my skin crawl, and act like my fear was the problem, not his behavior. When I brought home straight A's, he asked why they weren't higher. When a shopping cart nicked his heel, he treated it like a felony. Everything was my fault, including his temper. My mother played the part of the exhausted martyr. She told anyone who would listen that my dad abandoned us, that he stopped paying child support, that he started a new family without me. I believed her because I was a kid and she was my mother. My sisters tried to tell me dad still loved me, that he was paying, that none of that was true. But I had already learned the lesson they wanted me to learn. Trust them, not myself. I idolized the people who hurt me. That's the part most people don't understand. I cleaned. I cooked. I stayed quiet. I learned to survive by making myself small. When I finally earned a full scholarship to study mining engineering, I thought I'd found a way out. They killed that too. We can't afford it, they said. Never mind that my brother offered to pay for everything if I could live with him. My mother shut it down. She said I needed to stay close to family. Translation: stay under control. At 16, I visited one of my sisters. Her husband crossed a line with me. That moment cracked the spell. For the first time, I recognized what had been happening in my own home. When I told my sister, she didn't hesitate. She defended me and she confronted him. I went home and confronted my mother and stepfather. He laughed. Called me stupid for generalizing all men. He said he'd stop the worst of it, like he was doing me a favor. The emotional cruelty stayed. He even went on Facebook to post, "You're never too old to get a low blow." He made himself the victim. People liked it. Years went by. And then everything snapped. 2 of my nephews, 7 and 9, were living with us by then. I had basically become their caretaker. A teacher pulled me aside to say the boys had been stealing cash, a phone, a camera. Back at home I found their stash, plus my prescription meds and a piece of art I'd made and loved, now shredded. I was furious. My mother shrugged. "They're kids. You overreact." The same gaslight I'd lived under for years. I needed air. I went to a friend's place. We played games. We laughed. I had a few drinks. For a few hours I felt human. Then my phone lit up. My mother and stepfather had decided I was an alcoholic who needed professional help. They forced me into a psychologist's office. He listened, really listened, and said the words I needed: "You're not broken. You're abused. Leave them." I packed a suitcase and moved 3 hours away. For the first time in my life, I closed my bedroom door and slept without fear. The quiet felt like a miracle. The pain didn't disappear. Instead, doctors gave it names: bipolar disorder, severe anxiety, fibromyalgia. My body had been screaming for years. Now I could finally hear it. One day I called my father. The man I was told abandoned me. The man I was told never wanted me. His voice cracked when he realized it was me. He told me he'd paid more than the court ordered. He sent proof, bank slips, letters. My childhood narrative collapsed in a single call. When he learned what they did, I could hear the rage shaking in his breath. "If I ever see that man again, I'll kill him," he said. For the first time, someone was angry for me, not at me. I called my siblings one by one. I didn't hold back. My oldest brother went silent, then said, "I'm done with her." One sister sobbed. Another, the one whose husband hurt me, asked to meet. He showed up, older and smaller, and apologized through tears. "Years of therapy," he said. He wasn't asking to be forgiven. He was asking me to be free of him. I forgave him for myself, not for him. He has defended me ever since. Then came the darkest detail. My stepfather had tried the same with another sister. She called CPS and the police immediately. In a small town, news spreads fast. My mother's halo shattered. My stepfather couldn't hide behind fake respectability anymore. People crossed streets to avoid him. For the first time, the shame belonged to them. It was around my 23rd birthday when the final straw snapped. 2 of my nephews, 7 and 9, were living with us. I had basically become their caretaker. One afternoon, my mother and I brought a cake to their school, and a teacher pulled me aside. She said the boys had been stealing cash from purses, a phone, even a digital camera. My stomach sank. When I got home, I searched their room and found everything, plus my own prescription meds, strong antidepressants and mood stabilizers, and the one piece of art I'd poured my soul into ripped to shreds. I was furious. But my mother refused to confront them. "They're just kids," she said. "You overreact to everything." It was the same line she used my entire life. Her favorite way to gaslight me into silence. That night I realized I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. The walls felt like they were closing in, filled with ghosts of every time I'd been ignored, hit, or humiliated. So I did the one thing they never expected. I left. I went to a friend's house. We played games, laughed a little, tried to pretend we were normal. Then we opened a few drinks. For the first time in years, I felt like a person instead of a possession. Until my phone exploded with messages. My mother. My stepfather. Screaming through text that I was an alcoholic, a disgrace, that I needed professional help. By the next morning, they had called a psychologist and forced me to go. The irony? That psychologist became my lifeline. After one session, he looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're not crazy. You're abused. You need to leave them now." And for once I listened. I packed everything that mattered into one suitcase and moved 3 hours away. Felt like jumping off a cliff. But it was freedom. I finally had quiet nights. I could close my door, take a shower without fear, breathe without walking on eggshells. Of course, the scars didn't vanish. Soon after, I was officially diagnosed with bipolar disorder, severe anxiety, and fibromyalgia. My body's way of screaming about everything my voice never could. Some mornings I couldn't even move because my back locked up from tension. Pain became my shadow. But at least it was mine. Months later, I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I called my dad. The man I'd been told abandoned me. The man my mother said hated me. When he answered, his voice cracked. "Sweetheart, is it really you?" I told him everything. Every lie. Every touch. Every night I wished for an ending that never came. He went silent for a long time, then said, "I never stopped sending money. I never stopped loving you. Your mother made sure you'd never see the truth." He showed me proof, bank slips, old letters returned unopened. My entire childhood had been built on her manipulation. When he found out what she and her husband had done, I swear I could hear the rage shaking through the phone. He said, "If I ever see that man again, I'll kill him." And for the first time, I knew someone was angry for me, not at me. That call changed everything. It wasn't just validation, it was the match that lit the fuse. I began reaching out to my siblings one by one. I told them the truth, not the watered-down version, but everything. Every detail I had buried. The reactions were explosive. My oldest brother went quiet for almost a minute. Then he said, "She told me Dad stopped paying child support. She said you wanted nothing to do with us." When I told him the truth, his voice broke. "I'm done with her," he said. "You're not alone anymore." One sister broke down sobbing. Another, the one whose husband had once hurt me, stayed silent at first, then said she wanted to meet in person. When we did, he came along. He looked older, smaller somehow. He apologized, tears streaming, said he'd spent years in therapy trying to face what he did. Against every expectation, I forgave him. Not for him, for me. The man who once hurt me became one of the few men I actually trusted to protect me now. Piece by piece, the truth spread through the family. Everyone learned what our mother really was, how she had lied about Dad, poisoned every relationship, and stood by while her husband destroyed me. Even the sister who used to defend her cut ties. And then we discovered something even darker. My stepfather had tried the same thing with her once. She called CPS and the police before I could even finish my story. That's when everything blew up. Word reached our small hometown fast. In a place where gossip spreads like wildfire, suddenly my mother wasn't the long-suffering single mom anymore. She was the woman under investigation for endangering children. My stepfather? The creep everyone now crossed the street to avoid. For once, the shame was theirs, not mine. But revenge isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's slow, methodical, and hits where it hurts most. Their reputation, their control, their illusion of being the victims. That's exactly what was about to happen next. Revenge didn't look like a dramatic confrontation in a crowded room. It was a strategy. Collect truth, verify details, and place each piece where it would matter most. I started with evidence. Dates. Messages. Screenshots. The school's note about the boys. The psychologist's written recommendation that I leave. My dad's bank receipts. I wrote a timeline, the kind a detective would build, so when anyone asked I had the facts, not just the pain. Then I called a family meeting without my mother and stepfather. We met at my brother's house. I told the story straight through. No metaphors. No softening. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one of my sister's spouses, the most no-nonsense mom type you'll ever meet, said, "None of this is your fault." She stood up and hugged me like she meant it. That was the first victory. We agreed on boundaries. No more contact. No more pretending. We reached out to people who needed to know. Extended family friends who believed my mother's lies, the school for my nephews, and CPS with formal statements. My sister who had called CPS followed up with dates, names, everything. It wasn't a whisper network anymore. It was a paper trail. When CPS contacted my mother, the story she'd spun for years started to unravel. In a small town where image is everything, she couldn't perform innocence while dodging official questions. My stepfather kept his head down, but the eyes on him multiplied. He went from respected to watched in a matter of weeks. My brother cut her off. "We're done," he told her. One sister blocked every number. Another told her point blank she'd called the police. Their reactions were like dominoes falling toward the same conclusion. They had lost their audience. The control they loved evaporated. People asked if I wanted to press charges for the past. The truth is complicated. Statutes of limitation. The weight of reliving it in a courtroom. I chose a different route. Document, report what could still be acted on, and make sure they never held power over me or any child in our family again. That was my justice. They lost access, they lost cover, they lost the story. The fallout got ugly for them fast. My mother tried to smear me, calling me vindictive and ungrateful. The difference now was that I had receipts, and people had finally seen the pattern. When a liar loses credibility, the truth doesn't even need to shout. Then one more twist surfaced. My mother and stepfather had named me sole heir in their will. They thought money would buy silence or obedience. Instead, it became a symbol of how alone they'd made themselves. Nobody wanted anything to do with them. They didn't know who else to name. I didn't have to do a thing. Their own choices isolated them. The most important victory wasn't the town's opinion or the paperwork. It was the quiet in my own apartment. Locking my door. Breathing without fear. Waking up and making coffee and realizing the simple act of choosing my own mug was a kind of freedom I never thought I'd have. Here's the truth about revenge. It doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't rewind time. But it can rebalance the scales. My revenge was simple. I told the truth so loudly and so clearly that their version of reality couldn't survive. I took away the only thing that ever gave them power. My silence. My mother and stepfather lost what they valued most. Control, reputation, access. They can't parade as victims now. They can't hide behind concerned parenting. They're alone with their choices, and the family they used as a stage has left the theater. People think justice always looks like flashing lights and handcuffs. Sometimes it looks like a locked door, a boundary that holds, and a community that finally believes you. Sometimes justice is choosing your life and letting their lies die in the quiet they tried to deny you. If this story hit home, tap like and tell me in the comments. What's the one boundary you set that changed everything? And if you want more real stories where the truth finally wins, subscribe. There's more coming.